vyasam tato jayamudiraye aśapaṁ nityam bhavata sevaya bhagavad-yutam ashloke Yam prajantam anudhetam adheta-krityam dvaipayana virahapatarajuhava putreditam mayathayo taravo vidus tam sarvabhutapidayam manasosmi. Lord Krisna. So today we're reading Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 18, King Yayati regains his youth, text number 22. Yat idaṁ kūpa-magnāyā bhavata darśanaṁ mama na brāhmaṇah me bhavitā hasta-grāho mahā-bhuja kacasya bṛhaspatyasya śāpād yam aśapaṁ purā idaṁ kūpa-magnāyā bhavato darśanaṁ mama na brāhmaṇo me bhavitā hasta-grāho mahā-bhuja kacasya bṛhaspatyasyā śāpād aśapaṁ purā idaṁ kūpa-magnāyā bhavato darśanaṁ mama na brāhmaṇo me bhavitā hasta-grāho mahā-bhuja kacasya bṛhaspatyasyā śāpād aśapaṁ purā yat because of idaṁ this kūpa-magnāyā fallen in the well bhavata of your good self darśanaṁ meeting mama with me na not brahmana a qualified brahmana me my bhavitā will become hasta-grāho husband mahā-bhuja O great mighty armed one kacasya of Kaca bṛhaspatyasya the son of the learned brahmana and celestial priest Bṛhaspati.
The son of the learned brahmana and celestial priest Bṛhaspati.
śāpād because of the curse. Yam whom aśapaṁ I cursed. Purā in the past. Translation. Because of falling in the well, I met you. Indeed, this has been arranged by providence. After I cursed Kaca, the son of a learned scholar Bṛhaspati, he cursed me by saying that I would not have a brahmana for a husband. Therefore, O mighty armed one, there is no possibility of my becoming the wife of a brahmana. Purport. Kacha, the son of the learned celestial priest Bṛhaspati, had been a student of Shukracharya, from whom he had learned the art of reviving a man who has died untimely. This art is called Mrita Sanjivani, was especially used during wartime. When there was a war, soldiers would certainly die untimely, but if a soldier's body was intact, he could be brought to life again by this art of Mrita Sanjivani. This art was known to Shukracharya and many others, and Kacha, the son of Bṛhaspati, became Shukracharya's student to learn it. Devayani desired to have Kacha as her husband, but Kacha, out of regard for Shukracharya, looked upon the Guru's daughter as the respectable superior and therefore refused to marry her. Devayani angrily cursed Kacha by saying that although he had learned the art of Mrita Sanjivani from her father, it would be useless. When cursed in this way, Kacha retaliated by cursing Devayani never to have a husband who was a brahmana. Because Devayani liked Yayati, who was a kshatriya, she requested him to accept her as his bona fide wife, although this would be pratiloma vivaha, a marriage between the daughter of a high family and the son of a lower family. She explained that this arrangement was made by providence. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Idaṁ kūpa-magnāyā bhavato darśanaṁ mamāna brāhmaṇo me bhavitā hasta-grāho mahā-bhuja kacasya bārhaspatyasya śāpād aśapaṁ purā. Because of falling in the well, I met you. Indeed, this has been arranged by providence. After I cursed Kacha, the son of a learned scholar Bṛhaspati, he cursed me by saying that I would not have a brahmana for a husband. Therefore, O mighty armed one, there is no possibility of my becoming the wife of a brahmana. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vijnana Goswami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ajano Amrit Pujo Kanakavadata Sankirtana Kapitaro Kamala Taksha Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palamande Jagat Priya Karo Karnavata Yandah Pravishi Mamavachi Mamam Prasuptam Sanjivaya Tekila Shakti Darasvadamna Anyamscha Hasta Charana Shravana Dvagadi Pranannamara Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Chaitanya Chanda. Hare Krishna. So we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapuranam, and we're approaching the 10th canto, which will describe the Krishna's pastimes. But before that, Sukadeva Goswami is explaining to us what are the relatives of Krishna and from which lineage Krishna took place. This sort of consideration, this genealogy, was very important in Vedic culture. because everyone in Vedic culture was feeling a great pride of being a descendant of a very famous and noble lineage, no matter who they were. This part of Vedic culture is called Kula Gaurava. When somebody belonging to a very great family was entitled to the heritage of the family in the shape of the noble qualities which his ancestors would possess. And therefore, it was very important for Maharaja Pariksit to understand from which lineage Lord Krishna has come. And therefore, this whole narration about King Yayati is there in Srimad Bhagavatam and all the details, because besides being a very instructive story, King Yayati is the direct ancestor of Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna is from the Yadavas clan, and Yadavas were descendants of King Yayati. So, and being of utmost importance, this lineage consideration and so on and so forth, especially for people in the ancient time when Varnashrama was still quite prominent, and it definitely was very prominent during the time of Mahabharata's narration by Shukadev Goswami. Maharaja Pariksit asked, how come there is this completely despicable pratiloma marriage took place? Because King Yayati took as his good wife Devayani, and Devayani was from Brahmana caste, and King Yayati was a very powerful kshatriya. And that was completely, totally, absolutely prohibited in Vedic culture. That was practically unheard of, especially among very noble people. Noble people would not allow this sort of pratiloma marriages to take place because of very important reasons. And I will touch these reasons a little later, but now the story which is behind this is being described by Srila Prabhupada, and we will describe it in little more details. Shukadev Goswami explains this story, why this took place. And this took place because of very unfortunate event that once during the war between demons and demigods, the demigods suffered too much because Bṛhaspati didn't know this art of Mrityu Sanjivani. He didn't know the special secret mantras which would help to revive the dead bodies of the warriors killed in the war. And on the contrary, the teacher or preceptor of the demons, Shukracharya, knew this art very well. Therefore, demons would kill demigods left and right, and demigods would definitely kill demons, but demons were revived. So, therefore, demigods, they were in a very precarious condition, and therefore, ultimately, they approached the elder son of Bṛhaspati. And they said to the elder son of Bṛhaspati, you please go to Shukracharya and somehow or other learn this art. Your great brahmana and demigods, they worshipped Kacha, the elder son of Bṛhaspati, made a special puja, and also promised to him, if you do this, then we will give you the sacrificial share. you will be entitled to get the sacrificial share. In any sacrifice which would be performed, you will get something. So Kaca, being a very selfless brahmana, he kind of was a little seduced by this lucrative offering. And it was indeed very, very generous offering. Demigod said, for the rest of, the existence of the universe, you will get some soma. And Kaca said, it's a good deal. So he went to Shukracharya and he said, I will become your disciple, and it basically means I will become your servant. Because when somebody comes to you, at least this is implied, I don't know how much it is in the mind of modern people, but if somebody comes to a guru and says, I want to become your disciple, it's good because, you get another servant. And Shukracharya, even though he definitely perfectly knew the intentions of Kaca, he readily agreed to have a good brahmachari servant. Because brahmachari means a servant, means menial servant. Basically means that, you're nobody. And you will have to do whatever your guru tells you. And Kaca said, I will be your brahmachari disciple for 1,000 years. So Shukracharya thought a little bit, and 1,000 years is a long time. And he thought, yeah, it's a good deal. Whenever he gets it, it's okay. But for 1,000 years, I have a good servant in my house. And he had his household. He had his favorite daughter, Devayani, who was his pet daughter. And Kaca started serving very diligently and very conscientiously to his spiritual master. And basically, it would mean that he would tend his cows. It would mean that he would bring firewood from the forest. It would mean that he would tend the sacrificial fire every morning. Every morning he would be the first one to get up, to lead the sacrificial fire and to help in all the activities of Shukracharya, cook the breakfast. And not only this, it is specifically said in Matsya Puranam and Mahabharata, where this story is described in all details. He was very strict brahmachari, but despite being very strict brahmachari, he would follow the orders of his spiritual master, and that would mean that he would dance in front of Devayani. That was his special service. He would dance for Devayani and sing for Devayani, being alone with her. So somebody may ask, how is it perfect brahmacharya? It's a perfect brahmacharya because he was following strictly the orders of his spiritual master. So for a long time he would dance and sing for her pleasure, and Devayani, sure enough, she fell in love to Kaca. And for 500 years, Devayani was still young, so she was very... because it was happening on the higher planes of existence. So for 500 years, that was going on. Before one day, Kaca saw half of his allotted time which he was supposed to serve his guru passed, but demons, slow as they are and dull-witted as they are, after 500 years they figured out why Kaca is there. And they didn't like this arrangement. So once, while Kaca was with the cows, tending the cows, and he was sitting under the tree, demons approached him and asked him, "Who are you?" And Kaca said very honestly, "I am the son of Bṛhaspati, great guru of the demigods." And they said, "Oh, you are wanted." And they killed him. They mercilessly killed him. Not only did they kill him because they knew that Shukracharya knows this art of Mrityu Sanjivani, so they not only killed him, they cut his body into pieces. And by cutting his body just quite thoroughly into pieces, they gave this body to the jackals and to the wolves. And the body of Kacha was eaten by the jackals and the wolves in the higher planes of existence. So in the higher planets there are jackals and wolves. Anyways, the body of Kacha was mercilessly killed, and Kacha himself watched everything because he knew what's going on. He will tell this later to Devayani. And when the cows came back from the pastures, they came back without the cowherd. And the time was already very late. There was a time for evening sacrifice, and Shukracharya started evening sacrifice, but Devayani said, "My father, something is wrong." He said, "What is wrong?" "You know, Kacha is not back." "Don't you notice it?" And he said, "Yeah, sometimes something happens, you know." Shukracharya knew what happened, actually. He was a powerful brahmana, but he didn't want to, you know, kind of stand in the way to demons. He said, "You know, whatever happened, happened. No problem." But it was not so for Devayani, because for 500 years, Kacha was dancing for her. So it was long enough to enter deep into her heart. He was right there in her heart, and despite you know, the very detached attitude of her father, Devayani started insisting, "You should do something about it. You should call, by your mystic power, you should call Kacha, and I know how powerful you are. If you call Kacha with all your Brahminical power, Kacha will come." And, you know, Shukracharya had to obey the order of his daughter, and he called, "Hey, Kacha, come here, Kacha, come here." And sure enough, all the bellies of the wolves and jackals burst, and all of a sudden, Kacha, like a logo, you know, he was assembled again. The body of Kacha was assembled again. Prabhupada writes that, you know, this Mrityu Sanjivani art was only for those soldiers whose bodies were intact. But actually this Mrityu Sanjivani art was also for the bodies which were chopped to the small pieces. Anyway, so that happened, and Kacha came back, and Devayani asked what happened. And he said, "Yeah, something happened, you know, the demons didn't like me serving you." And Kacha, you know, Devayani was very pleased. And they killed me, and they chopped my body, and wolves ate me. And Devayani said, "Okay, so please be careful next time." So again, a few hundred years passed by. And but demons were very insistent. They wanted by all means to stop this vicious plan of Bṛhaspati or demigods. They want to completely destroy this plan. And therefore, next time because they knew what happened, next time they decided to make sure that Kacha will not survive, will not be the object of this Mrityu Sanjivani art. Therefore, they killed Kacha, they burned his body, and moreover, they very cleverly put the ashes of Kacha's body into the nice wine which Shukracharya drank for his lunch. So, It was quite a clever arrangement. Probably took them some time to figure out what to do, because they knew if he calls him back, a Kacha come back, then something wrong happens with his body, and there will be nobody to revive Shukracharya. So this happened, and again cows came back without Kacha, and again Devayani became hysterical. Devayani started, telling her father, please do something about it. Kacha has to come back. Kacha has to come back. And her father, he started in meditation, trying to find out where is Kacha. And sure enough, he found out that Kacha is in his belly. And he very, gently asked Kacha, Kacha, how come you are in my belly? And Kacha, in his subtle form, being attached to the body of Shukracharya, he said, yes, somehow or other I wanted to become your son, therefore I am your body now. And you drank my, my ashes with your little wine, which you took after lunch for better digestion. So, and Shukracharya wasn't a fix. He thought, what to do now? And he started preaching to Devayani. Devayani, be detached, whoever is born, he will die, no problem. So what's the big deal? Kacha is dead now. And Devayani, she said, no, by all means you have to revive Kacha. And, Shukracharya said, but I will have to die for this. And Devayani said, I don't care. It's better for you to die than I will make hell to you every day of your life. So that, and Shukracharya, he thought a little bit and he said, okay. And he figured out a plan. He said, okay, Kacha, now I will teach you this Mrityu Sanjivani art. And the deal is that, yes, I will revive you, I will be dead, but you will revive me. And in this way, we will solve the problem. And so the whole purpose of Kacha was actually achieved by this quite a dramatic, event which took place in his life. But Kacha was very happy. Kacha said, okay, just teach me this Sanjivani, Mrityu Sanjivani, and I will definitely revive you. And moreover, not only I revive you, I will become your son now. I will be twice born in the real sense of the word. I will become your son. Not only the son of my father, I will also become your son because I will be born from your body. So Shukracharya, he chanted the very secret mantra, and sure enough, his stomach burst, and Kacha happily jumped out of his stomach. And Devayani said, oh, Kacha, I'm very happy to see you. And Kacha diligently performed this Mrityu Sanjivani and revived Shukracharya. So basically, the whole purpose was achieved. And for 1,000 years, again, very dutifully Kacha served his guru. But when the 1,000 years was over, he approached his guru and took his permission to go back to the heavenly planets, to the planets of demigods. And his guru, being very pleased with him, he said, yes, you may go, no problem. You made your part of the deal, so please go back. And when he was about to depart, Devayani said, wait a second, wait a second. you're a very powerful brahmana, and you know that you owe your life to me, aren't you? It's because of me you are still, alive, and because of me you're still, this art of Mrityu Sanjeevani, so why don't you take me as your wife? And it's a good match. You're Brahmana, I am a Brahmani, we will have a good life together. And she said, no, I cannot do this, because you are the daughter of my preceptor, my guru. And I always looked at you, looked up at you. This is an amazing thing, because she got attached to Kacha, and he didn't get attached to Kacha, to Devayani. Why? Even though, they were associating quite intimately, he was dancing for her, but she was a worshipable object for him. And therefore the attachment didn't take place. Lust didn't enter his mind and his heart. Because when you worship somebody, then there is no question of lust. The lust only takes place if you look down at somebody, if you want to exploit somebody. So never, it basically means, this very beautiful story actually teaches us how to be free from lust. If you looked at everyone as the object of your worship, if you really adore somebody, then the lust will not enter, then the lusty thoughts will not come to you. Therefore, Chanakya Pandit, he says that, you should look at every woman besides your wife as your mother. And not only, as your mother, because, modern people, they will look at every woman as mother, and then they will still have the thoughts of incest, basically, because this is the crazy minds of Western people, or degraded people of Kali Yuga, not only Western people, everywhere, in India it's as well. But looking to every woman as the mother means looking at them as the worshipable objects, as the objects of one's worship. Then only the lust will not develop. So Kacha said, I cannot do this. In the same way, like Arjuna, he also refused to cohabit with Urvashi in heavenly planes, because she said, no, you're my mother, you're wife of Pururava, one of my ancestors. How can I do this? I cannot do this. It's unimaginable. So Kacha said no. And Devayani, she became very impassioned, and she said, if you don't marry me, then all the art of Sanjeevani will be wasted. You will never be able to use it. I am cursing you. And Kacha was very calm. And she said, okay, I'm taking your curse with gratitude, but because your curse is against Dharma. Please listen, it's very important part of this whole story, because, the curse of Devayani was effective because she was a powerful lady, but still it was against Dharma. There was no reason for her to curse Kacha, because Kacha gave a very solid reason why he could not marry her. But still, because of the anger, she cursed him, and he said, okay, I'll accept gratefully your curse, and I have to curse you back. Because this is according to Dharma. You did something wrong, and therefore I will also curse you, but because you did something wrong, not because of my enmity, not because of my envy, but because you did something wrong. You have to meet the consequences of it. You have to really, because if you do something wrong, you have to understand that you're responsible for this. So Kaca says, you have to be more responsible next time. Therefore, I also curse you, and you will not get a good husband. You will not get Brahmana as your husband. So that's the reason behind this story. And then he said, as far as I'm concerned, there's no problem. You cursed me that I will not be able to use this Mritu Sanjivani. No problem. I will teach somebody else to use it. So there are plenty of Brahmanas there. They have my brothers and everyone else. They will use Mritu Sanjivani, and I'm happy anyway. So this is the story which is there in Mahabharata and Matsya Purana, describing this whole event. And by the way, Shukracharya said, from now on, Brahmanas should not take wine. Before that, Brahmanas could take some sacrificial wine, but from now on, Brahmanas unfortunately cannot take wine. Too bad for us. Otherwise, we're all Brahmanas. Anyway, but again, coming back to the whole idea which is behind this question of Maharaja Pariksit, and why? Because it's a very powerful also part of this story, and a powerful message which is there. In Vedic culture, the science of genetics was very well known. Modern people proudly say that genetics started with the Mendel, who was crossbreeding different plants in his monastery. But actually, even before Mendel, long before Mendel, in Manu Samhita, the whole genetics is being described very carefully, applicable to the human species, because it's very important for the human beings to follow this science. Because both father and mother contribute to the qualities of the progeny of their sons and daughters, and because ancient Vedic sages, they knew perfectly well that the whole atmosphere in the human society very much depends on the quality of the people. They were extremely careful how to crossbreed and how to, to arrange these marriages. This caste system, even though we sometimes condemn caste system, but it was very scientific. It was extremely scientific, and therefore the only recommended marriages were among the same caste or among the same varna. Brahmanas are supposed to take Brahmanas as the wife, Kshatriyas as the wife, because the natures are compatible. And Srila Prabhupada, in the next purport, he says that ultimately this is to make boy and the girl happy together. Because when you have people with incompatible natures living together, they just make hell to each other. And therefore, one consideration was to make marriages very stable. Nowadays, nobody cares. In fact, there is no Brahmanas, there is no, of course, everyone is a Shudra, so no problem. So you can marry anyone. But the idea is to have somebody who is compatible with you, who has compatible nature, and therefore having compatible nature, you have nice relationship. But not only this. Another very important consideration is that if you have compatible nature, then the son, or specifically the son, but also daughters, they will also have very strongly developed nature. Whereas if you have different variegated mixtures of different qualities, then the people will be confused. The idea behind this varnas is to make people very clear in the mind what they are supposed to do. And in Kali Yuga, everyone is confused. Nobody knows his nature. Why? Because there is so much mixture. Because we're all Varna Shankara. You know, like in America, Indians, they have a joke that the Indians, the children of the Indians who live in America, they're called ABC, ABCD. Why they're called ABCD? Because they're American-born confused dishes. They're completely confused. Dishes means Indians, you know, the locals. They're completely confused because, again, because of this mixture, this Kali Yuga, everyone is just mixed. Fusion. Like, you know, people proudly say there is a fusion of culture. Fusion of culture means no culture, basically. That's what it means. And people completely confused, people don't know their nature, and therefore people do all kinds of abominable acts because their minds are not engaged. If you're very clear in your mind what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, if you're clear in the mind what is your nature, then your mind will be very peacefully engaged according to your nature, and you will not have time to do all kinds of sinful activities. But if you're confused, then all these idle thoughts come to you, and you just don't know what to do. You cannot concentrate your mind. That's the science behind it. If you are very clear in your mind who you are, you will have very focused mind, and your whole life will be very focused. Whereas if you have confused nature, if you have mixture of the nature, then you will have completely different contradictory tendencies. And one tendency, you know, like sometimes modern people, you know, you look in the charts of modern people, and you see completely incompatible nature in one person. He has Brahminical inclination and he has Shudra inclination. And because these two incompatible nature, totally incompatible nature, Shudra inclination and Brahminical inclination are totally incompatible. So this person, what he will do, he will have little Brahminical tendency, little Shudra tendency, and ultimately he will just lay down on the... He will not do neither, you know. He will not do either. He will not be engaged as a brahmana, he will not be engaged as a Shudra. At least if somebody has very pronounced Shudra nature, he will just work hard as a Shudra and he will be happy. And if you have these contradictory natures, which are there fighting inside your heart, you don't know what to do. And you prefer just to do all kinds of sinful activities and, you know, just enjoy yourself. Because you cannot really do something productive. That's why Arjuna was so horrified. He said, what will happen if this Varna Shankara will take place? You know, everyone will be sinful because of the idle minds, the minds which are not focused. And therefore, in Vedic culture, pratiloma marriages were completely prohibited. Anuloma marriages, to a certain extent, were allowed. Anuloma marriage means that father is of the higher caste and the mother is of a lower caste. It was acceptable, especially if the difference between father and mother was just one step down. If mother was just one step down than the father, then even though the progeny, the son, would not be happy, because still of the contradictory tendencies, but he would be accepted as the father's caste. He would not be ostracized from the Vedic society. But, if the difference would be already 2 steps down, that's already not so good. That's already... and if it's pratiloma, it was totally prohibited. So much so that the chandalas, we sometimes hear this very denigrating comments of Vedic scriptures about chandalas. Chandalas are supposed to be the lowest of the human being. Because it's a specific nature. Who is Chandala? Chandala is a result of pratiloma marriage when the father is Shudra and mother is Brahmani. Because of so much difference, and because the father is lower than the mother, and because of this, or for example, if the father was Shudra and mother was Kshatriya, then the son would become Ugra. Ugra means Ugra. Ugra means very cruel. Ugra means also very rough. The whole society which we're dealing now, they're just Ugras and Chandalas and lower than this. Just because of this not understanding the science behind Varnashrama system. And we see here that, therefore, Maharaja Pariksit was so surprised and so unpleasantly surprised that Krishna is coming actually from this pratiloma marriage. Even though Devayani was 1 step higher, still she was 1 step higher. And people who were born from these marriages, they were sutas. They were not the brahmanas, not the kshatriyas. Of course, they had some brahminical engagement. They were chariot drivers, and they were telling Puranas, but still they were quite, they were looked down in the society. Therefore, Karna was looked down. And I wanted to say something, but I have to finish now. So can I say something more? A little more? Basically, it's actually very amazing because it's not without a reason that Maharaja Pariksit asked this question. He asked this question because he understands that Yadu Maharaj, he's a result of this pratiloma marriage. Technically speaking, Yadu Maharaj, from where Krishna is taking his birth, the whole clan of Yadavas, they are not even kshatriyas. They are sutas, technically speaking. Because Devayani was from brahmana family and the powerful Yayati was from kshatriya. So they are sutas. And therefore they are lower kings. Sometimes when Arjuna in the 11th canto of Bhagavad Gita, he was begging forgiveness from Krishna. I called you Yadava. Basically, he means that I called you Yadava, saying that you're from this lower caste, basically. That's why Arjuna is begging forgiveness. Kurus were very high in the hierarchy. But Yadavas were basically, according to Vedic standards, they were not very high in the hierarchy because of this reason. And, Krishna took place from Yadu Maharaj, who was the result of this marriage. And moreover, he went to Nanda Maharaj. And Nanda Maharaj was also of a mixed caste. Because, of course, he was a kshatriya because he was the son of Maharaja Shurasen and his Vaishya wife. But still, anyway. So he was from this mixture. And Yashoda was also from the mixed caste. So Krishna, from both sides, he was from mixed caste. And there is a very powerful message which Krishna is giving to us. Even though varnashrama considerations are very important, Krishna still decided to take take birth from all this mixed caste. Why? Because there is much more important consideration. That is the level of bhakti. So that's the message behind it. Yes, we have to respect varnashrama culture. Yes, we have to, as much as possible in our context, to follow varnashrama culture, even though it's not possible completely. But still, we have to give prominence to bhakti. We have to understand that bhakti is much more important consideration. And this is the difficulty. Because to judge people according to their externals is simple. It's very clear. Somebody is more senior, somebody is a sannyasi. Sure enough, you have to respect him. Because he is senior according to varnashrama consideration, this and that. Somebody has Brahminical initiation. Sure enough, you have to respect him. But if we want to create the real society of the devotees, we also have to learn how to appreciate devotion, which is much more difficult. Because it's not external, it's internal. But still, this art of learning, appreciating the devotion of other people, no matter who they are, they may be women, they may be, very new bhaktas. If they have greater devotion, they have to be given respect. That's the powerful message which is behind this story. Yes, we have to be very careful as far as all this science is concerned. Sure enough. Yes, we have to respect Vedic culture. It's very scientific and we have to follow Vedic culture as much as possible. But above everything, we have to respect devotion. We have to respect bhakti. And bhakti is beyond all this consideration. It's completely beyond all these considerations. And anyone can become a great devotee. It's just a question of his sincerity. And that's a very powerful message which Krishna sends to us and which is there implied by this question of Maharaja Pariksit and the answer which is given by Shukadeva Goswami, and I will not continue any longer. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Why I wanted to say this? Because in our society we have now conflict among these staunch followers of varnashrama system, conservative followers of varnashrama system who are trying, and those liberals who are trying to make, but bhakti actually reconciles all the differences. If we understand this, yes, we have to respect the considerations of varnashrama, but we at the same time have to understand the inner message of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, which is about bhakti. Then there will be no problem. Yes, external respect should be according to the considerations of varnashrama. Internal respect should be entirely according to development of one's bhakti. That's a very powerful thing which we have to remember all the time. Then there will be no conflict because bhakti reconciles all the differences, synthesizes all the differences. Only if we are blind to this synthesizing power of bhakti, we will enter into these arguments between each other, and it will ultimately destroy our society. Okay, thank you very much. So I guess we should stop now. Somebody will guide me. Shall I ask some questions?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for a very enlightening class. My question is, as you said, somebody might have mixed natures. And does bhakti influence our nature? Does prolong the bhakti for some time? Does it make the nature clear? And how does it influence a person's natures?
Bhakti will help one to understand one's nature more clearly, one's tendency more clearly, and moreover, bhakti being this synthesizing power will help to also to reconcile these tendencies and to help you to engage productively. Why this scientific system of varnashrama was there? Because people who have very clear nature would be very productive and will be doing very constructive work. So bhakti will do this internally. If you practice bhakti, then it will help you to reconcile these tendencies and to engage this tendency productively. No doubt about it.